I'm very happy to have this panel discussion today about this very interesting topic. And maybe you think it's very interesting because of the coronavirus, but actually when we planned this panel, we invited Kerry and Florian already before, and they wanted to come to Kiel to visit us here because for us at least, online education has been a very important topic already before the coronavirus. And actually, I think, or I hope that we can focus this panel discussion a little bit also beyond the current state of emergency, I would say. So to focus a little bit on how the MOOCs and they actually get used now, or online content can be used in an effective way also afterwards. Because right now we know it's a very important issue. It's maybe in some cases the only way we can still teach. But beyond that, I think there's an important or significant part of the online education that might be valuable afterwards as well. And I think it would be really nice to still discuss in this round a little bit, maybe also beyond the current state, to look at what might be really valuable and important. So I will basically start, give a quick input of Open Campus and its different teaching formats in combination with online learning content, and to provide a little bit insight maybe what were our conclusions or our experiences with what might be benefits from online education, or what might be lacking in it. And then Kerry will give an input on what's Coursera doing right now in or the opportunities the Coursera learning platform is providing for universities in particular, and how the platform is used for teaching in higher education. And then Florian Rampelt from the Stifterverband, which is having the new project, a pilot project sponsored from the federal government, the BMBF, on setting up a MOOC platform, basically, and the first step for AI courses, or particularly for AI courses, because we are still lacking a kind of central MOOC platform, online course platform in Germany. And so I think one of the goals from Florian is to actually kick off this for Germany with AI. And then I'm also very happy to have Ilka here tonight, because she will also provide useful, I think, because like us at Open Campus, the university, of course, is the biggest in the biggest need of, or can I say, like a customer of these courses. So we will hopefully have some interesting and maybe difficult questions to Florian and Kerry, and how they want to solve the needs of higher education with the online courses. So that's basically the idea of this panel. And before handing over to Kerry, I will start with the introduction of Open Campus. And yeah, so first of all, maybe to give you a quick idea of the program of Open Campus, I don't know if you can perfectly read it, but it's 21 courses, and we have basically 400 students each semester taking part or applying for the courses. And this semester, obviously, it was a little bit bigger also because typically we are restricted in the rooms we're having available. So each course typically has a maximum of 30 participants, but this semester was slightly bigger. And as you can see, a lot of those courses, and that's maybe also important for understanding later on our needs, or what we think is where online education can have a big benefit, is that our courses are basically around the so-called 21st century skills, a lot technology-driven skills, or things that are cross-curricular maybe as well. So they are not the typical maybe subject mathematics-driven course or subject-driven courses that you have at university. So they are, as you can see, so virtual reality sessions, machine learning sessions. So that's kind of a little bit what you have to have in mind when we talk about the conclusions from our side at Open Campus. The other thing is the different types of courses we're having. So it's started with one of the ideas of the Open Campus program was to actually get students and companies together, so the students that benefit from a more practical education and the needs, what they need to know in their work life later, and also for the local companies to get into contact with students and maybe have benefit from sharing their knowledge, and also having contact to future employees, because we have a large university here in Kiel, but one of the problems is sometimes that they apply to large companies, which we don't have in Schleswig-Holstein, but we have interesting small or medium-sized companies, and sometimes they are not really visible. So it was one of the opportunities to bring these two together, and therefore maybe to have high potential students still working here in the state. So the first program the first type of courses is basically that we have sessions where each week an expert from a local company comes in and provides insights on how they are doing things. And then a practice project the students does beside. So he's having, together with a company sometimes as well, or often actually, has a project he's working on, developing a social media strategy, programming a web page, could be very different things. And then we started, the next thing is that we have courses where experts actually provide an introduction to a specific content. So that might be web development, that might be machine learning, or other issues. So they actually prepare more like a professor or a teacher in school, the content for a specific subject. And then also the course is always accompanied by a practice project conducted by the students, typically in groups, so 3 or 4 students working together on a project. So in this middle size, and I have here the arrow on the side, typically we have more and more blended learning. So here is not a lot of blended learning, maybe because the experts come from outside, they just report or share their experiences. And here we use a lot of so-called learning nuggets. So we try to use YouTube videos, all the content you can find on the internet, to actually provide, which is, if you want to learn machine learning or how to do virtual or implement virtual realities, what you're doing today. So you're looking up in the internet, how can you do that? You have short videos. So basically the experts here, they have the knowledge, which are the relevant videos, which are the good videos that you need to know. And they construct basically the learning paths and the learning goals for the students. So, and then the last part is what we are having since for 1 year now, basically for 2 semesters, is that we use MOOCs. So we select MOOCs that we think serve our needs. And particularly now we have it in the web project, in the web development course, and the machine learning course, and then the deep learning course. And then we have experts that tutor these sessions. So once a week, we meet with groups or with the participants. We discuss the exercises, any problems, sometimes questions beyond the course also, but basically providing some additional insight maybe from practice that is not provided in the course, but the learning content itself is provided in the MOOC. And then also what's really important, I think, is the practice project. So even in that, it's not mandatory actually for the participants to complete the MOOC. It's what's mandatory is to complete the practice project. So the work for 3 or 4 persons together on a practice project, and maybe I can talk a little bit later on that as well. But what we notice, that's like kind of the important part to motivate students to come together and to work on this. And to come now maybe to what we've noticed or experienced when developing these courses or working with different formats. So for us, it's always a big challenge, or the decision is between using learning nuggets like video content you find on the internet, which is maybe really beneficial, and additionally the teaching in class, and then using online courses. And I try to provide here some pros and cons that we were noticing. So the integration of learning nuggets, well, first of all, in comparison to a classical teaching, you have more time in class to focus on problems. You have very flexible learning path and goals because you individually put it together for all the classes. But on the cons, it's very time consuming to find the correct ones because there's no curation of these contents. It takes a long time until you find the right content you need for your specific purpose because it's so heterogeneous. There's no quality assurance. So the internet is full of a lot of bad things, like bad tutorials as well. So often they don't fit together. Someone's using a function or some content knowledge that hasn't been taught in the other learning nuggets before, so it's kind of difficult to fit them together. Then the teaching methods are sometimes different, and something on the cons here as well, you have to manually monitor what the students were doing, and that's also already referring maybe to the MOOCs. So the MOOCs on the other side, they have a quality. Typically, when you refer to the large platforms like Coursera, Udacity, FutureLearn, they have carefully designed learning content that build on each other, and you just even within those ones, so you have maybe sometimes 2 or 3 web development courses, you can still, it's kind of maneuverable, the content you're selecting from, and you can fully discuss the classes on the discussions and the learning content and the related problems, so you have more time maybe to help students or to discuss the serious problems and don't have, for example, technical problems you have to focus on. And often there's integrated monitoring and a self-assessment for the students in there. So, and it's very time effective for the local teacher in that sense. That's maybe something for later as well. So, but even though there's a lot of advantages, obviously here that I have noticed, there's some it's less points, but maybe there are more, could be that they are more important or at least as important. So it's really rigid, the content. So you either take a course or you don't take a course. So you don't have the choice to take a certain part, or it's very, it will be really difficult to just take a chapter because then you have to introduce everything before and after, or to skip a chapter is often really an impossible as well. And then also motivational issues. What I was mentioning before, if you just provide the MOOC and you meet once a week, maybe. So what I noticed, at least at the courses I was giving, the really motivational factor comes in when we start the project work. When the students actually work on the project together and they have this goal, and then they see the sense in the MOOC, and or they do, it's really hard to provide motivation with just the MOOC, because even when I do the other classes more with the learning nuggets, then I kind of, as a local teacher, provide the motivation because I'm engaged with the content. I like the content. So it's a completely different thing if you get the content by a local teacher. You're really connecting to him directly and you know him, instead of someone from somewhere else. Might be a famous person. Even sometimes it's maybe important if it's like really important person that someone is eager to learn from. But typically, if someone's just remote on the video and you're not really connected to him, that's less motivation, I'd say. So, oh, and my time is already over. I think I'm extending too much. So our experience, first of all, what's really important for us, if you use learning nuggets, then you need professionals with teaching experience and ample time, because it's really time consuming to find those ones, to basically construct the lecture. And if you use MOOCs, then you need professionals with time to review the learning content, obviously, and to do the weekly sessions. And so when we talk about the courses we are providing, machine learning, for example, or web development, then you need skilled professionals that you don't find a lot. So time is really important for us, and particularly in all those 21st century skills, maybe it's really hard, to find the professionals. What we notice as well is are really eager to share their knowledge, but obviously they don't have a lot of time, so they wouldn't be able to really prepare over a cycle of 2 or 3 years a really good course, because you need cycles to do a good course. And courses, online courses, are an effective way for us to integrate the professionals and to actually provide the content we wouldn't be able to otherwise give. And also the quality assurance by the MOOCs is quite high, so we know what they're given. If we just would hire a professional to do a course, it would be really hard for us to tell, like, is the content according to the quality we wanted to have. So for us, quality assurance is is a big thing. And then also what we noticed that the existing platforms often are not flexible enough for our needs to integrate our own content, because still we would like to have small parts our own in those online courses for the motivation of the students, because to put it in a local context for a lot of reasons. So that's something they are still quite rigid in that sense. So hopefully I wasn't talking too much. And I'll stop sharing the screen, and Kerry, you can, I'm happy to hear your thoughts from Coursera and what you are doing in providing higher education. You're still muted too.
Okay, so you should be able to hear me now and see my screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. So thanks very much, Stefan, for. Oops, bear with me. My screen is on me. There we go. There we go. To start now. Sorry about that. Okay. Thanks very much, Stefan. Thanks for that introduction and for the overview of Open Campus. It's really interesting to hear how you've been integrating MOOCs and those nuggets into what you're doing, and how you're wrapping that support around to cope with those motivational issues. So I'm delighted to have been invited to join this panel today, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what everybody has to say about the potential for online in higher education. And what I want to bring, the perspective I'd like to bring, is working for Coursera. We're working with governments, with businesses, and with higher education institutions across the world. And I'd just like to bring a little bit of that global perspective to what we're seeing. Now, as Stefan mentioned, when we agreed to speak on this panel, actually, this was pre-COVID. So it was going to be a very different conversation, I think. I think all the things that we would have said are still very relevant, but I think the impact of COVID has actually just accelerated a lot of those things, and actually it's given an urgency to universities to need to respond to providing online and blended models. So this quote here from UNESCO, this was released on the 4th of March, and I think they were sort of saying they'd recognized, I think by this point, 22 countries around the world had closed their universities, and they were predicting a massive disruption to education. I think for some of us, even on March 4th, it was difficult to imagine that actually might affect the whole world. And now today, we're seeing that, bear with me, here we go. We're seeing that the statistics on June the 8th were showing that 134 countries had actually closed their education institutions, and 1.12 billion learners were being affected by not being able to go to campus or to school. So that, I mean, we could never have predicted such a massive impact. So at Coursera, what have we seen? How has that impacted what we do, and the activity that we're seeing on the online platform? So today we have around 60 million learners registered on the Coursera platform, and from the period of March to April, we saw 10 million new learners enroll on Coursera, which was a 644% increase on what we had seen in April of 2019. So even though schools were closing, students were searching out content to continue their learning, to take them to the end of the year and help prepare them for the exams. So we saw an increase, a 15 times increase in new people coming to the Coursera platform because of what was happening with COVID. So what we decided to do at Coursera, together with the partners that actually have produced some of the fabulous content that you'll see, the Harvards, the Imperial College London, Georgia Tech. I mean, many of these universities have put great content onto Coursera. They permitted us and worked with us to be able to bring Coursera for Campus, which had actually only launched in October 2019. We decided to bring this to the world and actually make it free of charge so that we could help every university in the world that was facing closure, every country, to be able to respond quickly in what was essentially a crisis situation where learners were suddenly cut off from being able to learn and complete, some of them, their final year of education before moving into work. So we released Coursera for Campus initiative, and the response was incredible. We had, since March 12th, which was when it launched, we had 34,000 inquiries from faculty and admins around the world. We've actually launched 8,800 instances, so university instances of Coursera for Campus to support those universities. And we've had 1.2 million learners enroll onto Coursera through those universities that have taken up the offer. And we've seen 5 million course enrollments. So there's 1.2 million learners have enrolled on 5 million different courses, which is just, I mean, these numbers are astounding. So this is just the breakdown for across Europe, Middle East and Africa for a bit of context. And I thought it might be interesting just to draw on which domains, which areas where we're seeing the biggest demand in. So as you can see here, by far computer science is where many of those course enrollments, those 5 million course enrollments have been focused, but also business and data science. They're making up almost 50 or more than 50% of the enrollments that we're seeing onto the platform at the moment. And in terms of like the courses, the actual courses people have been taken, you can see programming for everybody. That's been the #1 course. With over 221,000 enrollments. Many of them there, you'll see they're in the area of computer science, Python, AI for everybody. They seem to be the courses that are speaking to people and I guess helping them prepare for the fourth industrial revolution, but also, you know, to be competitive in what is actually going to be a very difficult time for students who are going in to look for work now in an economic downturn. So I just wanted to highlight a few of the trends to kind of kick off the discussion after Florian has also had a chance to speak. So some of the trends that that we're seeing and that we're predicting across higher education. So I think we're really going to see a focus on blended learning. As we know, the COVID epidemic, right now, many universities are closed. Some are starting to think about the return for next semester. Some have delayed the start of next semester. Universities like Cambridge have said everything will be online for the year 2020-2021. And in some cases, governments still haven't made decisions about what that new normal is going to look like. So I think what we're going to see and what I'm talking to many universities about is how we can create blended learning opportunities so that there may be some on-campus time and off-campus time will probably be necessary for everybody, because campus will not be able to accommodate all the learners all at once. So I think that's clearly a model that's going to be coming a bit more to the fore. And obviously the way to cope with a blended learning model is it's online courses and online credentials. So I think what we're going to see is every university is going to explore building their own content. They'll have knowledge and they'll have perhaps some assets already that they're able to convert into quality online courses. I think there's going to be universities that may also look to buy in content or to work with partners like Coursera to quickly be able to bring in quality content that they know has been through kind of quality assurance processes and governance processes of those university partners that have created it. And so I think that's going to be, we're going to see a lot more of that coming through. And also I think as they're moving to online, there might start to be a bit of pressure on tuition fees. So I think some questions will be raised around if you're not coming on campus, should you be paying the same as you would if you're taking an online or blended degree? And I think that pressure is going to be augmented as well by the economic downturn that we're going to see, where money, perhaps people will have less money to invest in their education. So I think that's something that we're going to need to be thinking about. But I also think that that's going to drive the educational need to make it job relevant, because jobs, it's going to be more competitive. There's going to be unemployment. There's going to be more people looking for work, and how students are going to stand out against all the others that are searching for jobs is going to be by having job relevant credentials that they're able to evidence that they have the skills that are required for the job that's being advertised. So I think that's really going to be a really important thing to consider in the curriculum that we're going to be universities are going to be delivering, and I think students are going to be demanding those job relevant elements to their courses. That very much ties into the lifelong learning, which has been something that obviously now with the fourth industrial revolution already there's a need for us to constantly reskill and upskill, not just for the 4 or 5 years that we're at university, but for the rest of our careers. We're going to need to learn and adapt to things and how they're changing. But I think people who are in work are going to find it very difficult to now give up those roles, their jobs, to go back full-time to education, particularly in the current climate. And I think those learners particularly now are going to want to work alongside studying. So how that balance can be made, and perhaps that is with blended or flexible online models. But I think we're going to see a drive and a demand in that area. And also that's going to lead us perhaps to looking at things in a bit more of a modular and stackable way. So perhaps not engaging in a full master's program, but maybe looking at smaller, more bite-sized chunks of learning that can be built up to help us sort of in our lifelong learning path and build up those credentials as and when we have the time and the money to invest in them. So those are just a few of the trends that I'm seeing as I'm talking to universities and some of the corporate clients that we're dealing with at the moment. And I'll just like to finish there. So thank you. I'll pass on back to Steffen and then on to Florian. Okay.
Insights. And very interesting also to see, I think, what's currently on the top always, to see what the students are actually interested in. So I think because there the students can select, and that's usually in universities they select once at the very beginning. So that's really interesting. So our next speaker then is Florian Rampelt, and as I said before, what's very unusual in Germany a little bit is that we don't have a huge online course platform. We have the big platforms in the US, but also in India, in France, in Great Britain, we have huge national platforms for online courses, and in Germany this is still missing. So I'm really curious, Florian, what you are planning with your platform and what your plans are for the future.
Thanks a lot, Steffen. I think I have to emphasize at the very beginning, of course, there is also many very important reasons for this missing in Germany. One of the major reasons, coming back to what you just said, Kerry, is, of course, in Germany and in many European countries, not in Great Britain, education is believed to be a public good and thus heavily state funded. And the tuition question is a different question compared to the United States, to Great Britain, or to many other countries that you probably work with at Coursera. But still, I'm really happy to follow up to what Steffen explained, to what you said, Kerry. I'm a great fan of Coursera, having studied some of the courses. I saw that AI for Everyone is still on the list. I mean, it's a great course that so many have been doing also before the COVID-19 crisis. What I'm going to talk about today is one particular project that I am currently responsible for. It's a platform, but it is, and I have to emphasize that at the very beginning, it's a research project, a prototype that we are building in order to find out possible scenarios for Germany and for Europe. So all that I'm going to talk about has a focus on Germany and on Europe, based on the German government strategy for AI, and on a strategy that also attempts to achieve something that is called AI made in Europe. And I believe there's also a need for certain AI competencies that we are able to teach learners with a focus on the topics that we have in Europe. So I'll also quickly try to share my presentation. Let's see. Yes, and I'm not that in. Now you should see my presentation. So I am wearing different hats here also to make that hopefully clear. I come from an organization that's called Stifterverband. Stifterverband is a German research funding organization that has existed for the last 100 years, supporting higher education and research institutions in very different fields. And only in the last 10, 20 years, innovation has become one of our focus topics, and also topics such as future skills, and with a focus on education in general, but especially with a focus on higher education. And this organization, Stifterverband, collaborates with different partners in different projects, often supported by public funding. And the project AI Campus that I'm going to talk about is one of those projects that is supported by public funding. And we are not doing it only ourselves, but we have great partners bringing together different competencies. The AI Campus is a learning platform for artificial intelligence, a pilot for a learning platform for artificial intelligence that aims to come closer to the vision that we need an AI competent society. I think what Kerry just showed to us, there is a huge demand in programming skills, in data science skills, and in very specific AI skills. And we try to support that in various ways. The AI Campus wants to promote AI skills and competencies on a broad scale and get more people interested in the topic. That is a worldwide, a global issue, not only in Germany, that there is a huge demand in skilled labor in these different fields, and there is not enough learning opportunities available at this very moment. We want to enable learners to understand, question, and design AI. And what is very important on that is this is not only meant for computer scientists. This is also meant for teachers. This is meant for mechanical engineers, for anyone who has to do with AI in their daily lives. And you need different learning opportunities for different learners and different members of the workforce. What we do is we follow two approaches that bring together what the colleagues have been saying already. And we believe that there is a gap in certain skills, especially there's also a language gap. We focus on German language course offers and learning opportunities, but also a topical gap looking at AI made in Europe. So we develop our own learning opportunities, which are massive open online courses, but also many learning nuggets that Steffen has been talking about already. But we also believe there is a very high demand and there's a very high need in better curating all the great open content that is available out there already. And Coursera, for sure, is one of the providers with great content out there. Unfortunately, not all of it open, but of course, that's part of a business model that you have to follow based on the structure of your organization. I will just talk about our guiding principles after that, but I want to emphasize that really, I believe one of the greatest potentials of this COVID-19 pandemic is that people start to understand which great opportunities the World Wide Web already has to offer. We just need to start looking for them. Too many people do not know that Coursera even exists, that edX, that all the other platforms exist, and what is there beyond maybe also YouTube. At the same time, we need to fill gaps, as I said before already. I think what also is a little different in our approach compared to what you guys are doing at Coursera, Kerry, is that we mainly focus on students. And the reason is that the German Ministry for Research and Education is our main funder, and their interest is to strengthen students throughout their educational biography with a focus on the higher education sphere. At the same time, we believe in a principle that's called lifelong learning. Of course, we said that also before, and lifelong learning includes everyone from a student still at the school up to a professional who has been like working for 30 years and wants to do some further education. What is important for our work is we don't do corporate education for profit education. Our principle is that we do open education for different target groups. And we do that because of some very specific how can you say it, of an environment in Germany that is based on education as a public good, and that is based on a structure where we are very much state-centered within our educational systems. And this is why we say within funding by the German federal government, all we can do is enable universities, enable the different states of Germany to push forward their individual approaches and their ideas about innovative learning opportunities in a specific field, in our case, the field of artificial intelligence. Our prototype project is going on for 3 years and with quite some funding from the federal government. And very important for us is that not Stifterverband gets all of that money, but we distribute that money to partners, to higher education institutions and other who want to get on this pathway of innovation in education opportunities. And I believe that digital education and massive open online courses are a major part of this pathway. I think the consortium is not that important, but just for you to see, there are 5 major partners. We do have a small German MOOC platform called the HPI, Open HPI platform. They work together with the World Health Organization, for example, internationally, but very much research focused. Also, not that much in the field of corporate education. They are our partner looking at courses. And we do also have one major partner, and I think that is crucial for our project, the German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence. Steffen said that before, you need competent people who help you to really have content available that is of high quality. And we do have the best researchers from Germany working with us on AI content, similar to some of the researchers, of course, that Coursera has been working on with their online courses. When we started thinking about that idea and the ministry approached different partners, we had some very clear conditions for getting started with such a prototype. And this is also very important to me. And the most important conditions are condition number 1 and condition number 6. Our principle is that we are aiming for interoperability and cooperation. For example, many universities in Germany use a platform called Moodle that most know. Moodle has many different integrations like H5P integrations. And we believe if we produce content that we are able to integrate into the LMSs, into the learning management systems that universities already know, it's much more likely that it's going to be used by learners. Not everyone, although there is an increase in demand for MOOCs, not everyone is going to go on a separate platform. And the second aspect is that it's all about openness. I often say that I'm like an open education enthusiast. Maybe I'm sometimes a little naive also on that, but I believe in education as a public good, and I believe that there should be public funding available for open education resources, massive open online courses in this very, very original idea that it had been following, but also looking at the platforms, the technology that we develop. So I believe also in public funding open code, a great initiative that we have here in Europe. So all we do with this prototype project is about open educational opportunities on different levels. It's not about for-profit education or corporate education. We have not yet started with the platform. It's not live already, but it's going to go live in July. The project is only like 9 months old, but we're working quite hard and quite quickly and quite fast on it. So you're going to see a artificial intelligence learning platform in July that already has then content available in German and English, but only a few smaller courses. All the great stuff that we're working on with big universities takes its time. From Coursera, you know that. I mean, it just takes time to write a great script, to have all the didactical aspects in development, to create great media that supports the course. It takes time, and 2021 is going to be the year where we believe that there's going to be a lot of German-made AI content. And what we do at the moment is not only German-made. I'm really happy about that. From the very beginning, the European country of Luxembourg joined us because they said, hey, it's a great idea. We are too small as a state on ourselves. We want to collaborate with you guys. So it is a European platform already from the very beginning. This is why we had the KI campus. KI is German for artificial intelligence. And then we started and had to say already, okay, we need two brands, KI campus and AI campus, because we're going to launch with English content as well. The mock-up, it's very typical, and the design is also typical for how, like, usually learning platforms, MOOC platforms look like, and it has very typical learning opportunities, formats, and exchange opportunities as others also, but with a focus on the German and European higher education community. And one aspect, connecting back to what Steffen has said before, is really important for us. For us, it's also about like stackable learning content, looking at what Kerry said before. When we have higher education institutions develop a course, it has to be openly licensed, and the content within the course also needs an open license. So it can be a learning nugget, for example, a video that you use from it that also is openly available and with a Creative Commons license. It's very difficult. You all know that. I mean, there is a great discussion going on about copyright, about open access, open science. But we believe if we work on such a new platform, it has to follow these principles, although not all of them have been finally sorted out yet. And from the learning nugget to the course, there's of course another level, and Coursera is working on that already. Micro degrees, nano degrees, they're called on other platforms. Micro credentials is a very important topic within the European Union at the moment also. And we believe that these stackable degrees that complement higher education are definitely part of the future of higher education in Germany and Europe. Just a short insight in the partners that we're working on within our pilot phase. We're going to start with many big universities from Germany, but also smaller universities of applied sciences, startups as partners, also partners from Schleswig-Holstein, the state where the Waterkant festival is going on. Unfortunately, not yet University of Kiel, but I hope that will change very soon. And we're going to develop until 2021, 22 innovative learning opportunities. Why do I say innovative learning opportunities? Because I believe a MOOC, a massive open online course, is not the only solution towards the needs higher education institutions have. Often a good podcast, a great video, or even a great text can better help a teacher who wants to improve the teaching within an existing course, within a module, than a full course. And it is very important that with what we do not want to replace higher education institutions or even study programs. We want to add towards what is already existing, and we want to describe pathways that help higher education institutions integrate high-quality AI content within their curricula. And I'm really happy that we have quite a lot of universities who are on that pathway already and who are going to try it out with our support in the next 2 years. Looking at the time, I think I can just quickly go over these slides. I'm looking forward to the discussion, and I'm looking forward to talking about AI skills and competencies, but also skills and competencies generally needed within higher education. And I do believe that we all share the idea that there is a need for innovative digital learning opportunities, but of course, there are different pathways. And we always, when we talk about higher education, have to consider the needs of the institution and the needs of the individual teacher and learner. And I think there's a lot of work for us still to do, but I believe that there's also a new openness after and within the COVID-19 pandemic. And I hope that we jointly will move forward into a new normal that is driven by innovation and digitalization, but also encourages all the great work that we already have there at higher education institutions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Florian. I always love to see how passionate you are about education. It really, yeah, I love that. And I feel the same sometimes, but I think you are the perfect example to always show that. So maybe let me start with some introductory questions to Ilka, and hopefully, or maybe she has also some questions or yeah, on online content that's currently existing. So when I like a year ago, I was providing a data science introductory course for yeah, final bachelor students in education. So education students, 6th semester bachelor. And then at the end, I was showing kind of, do you know any of these platforms, Udacity? Do you know what is a MOOC? And there was 15 students, and none of them knew about and what is a MOOC or knew those online learning platforms. And they were education students, so they were actually hoping to, or they're supposed to educate us in the future. So one of the things I was wondering, how often did you have to explain what is a MOOC during this time? Do you still feel the same? Did that change maybe during the COVID-19? And then also the second question, maybe right after, you were saying that some of the teachers were actually having good experience with using online learning content. So I guess a lot of them shared videos of their own lectures, or did you hear about anyone actually using MOOC content? So those are maybe the first two starting contents.
Yeah, well, both questions are great questions, but let me thank all of you first of all. That was really impressive. I'm very impressed by your work, but also, like you said, like how enthusiastic you are about what you do. And I think when other people see that, they should also become enthusiastic about what you do. So your question is absolutely right. Why do maybe teachers and students in Germany do not use these opportunities as much as in other countries? I think you have already kind of answered that education in Germany is maybe organized a bit different. So it's open to everyone, so you can go to the university, and this already is open. We do not have tuition fees, but of course we also have like costs and barriers. I think one very important thing is how to involve the teachers and the students. My question to you, or my answer to your question, have more people used MOOCs, would still be no. So they actually, yes, they do produce their own videos. They do produce their own materials. We have been asked, though, as a university board, can we buy can we buy material that's on the market? But then the buying is a problem for our university to organize. So we can buy it by our library, so it's free for everyone, but we cannot like pay students to have access to courses. So that's maybe more of a kind of regulation barrier. But to me, much more interesting is the question of actually, yes, how to involve teachers, because this observation is exactly the same with classic materials. So they want to tell their own story. They want to have their own narrative. They do not want to have a book that they can just kind of work on. So that would be a question maybe to Kerry and also to Florian, and yeah, also to Steffen, because you have mentioned three very different approaches. The MOOC, which is kind of ready to eat, right? The nuggets that you can include in other areas, and then the open educational resources that we work on in our own project that actually allows the teachers to take something, but to adapt it to their own courses and then to use it in a way that they want to use it. And that is obviously an approach that might be more attractive to some of the teachers. So Steffen, when you said we need teachers and that's very difficult, I would say we have teachers. So you just cooperate with them, and then maybe this becomes a better story for German universities. And I would have the same question on the roles of students, but maybe I postpone this a little bit. So I would be happy to hear your answers to that. How can you involve the existing teachers in a better way into your material and not your material into the teachers, if you know what I mean?
Yeah. So maybe I'll try and answer that question first of all. So yeah, thank you for the question. It's a really good one, and I think when we're sort of thinking about, I'm talking to a lot of universities about how we can blend the MOOCs into the existing programs. Obviously, you've already got your curriculum, you've already got the learning outcomes that you've said that you will teach to those students and help those students achieve by the end of their studies. So, we don't want to come and disrupt those plans to teach that material. But I think where MOOCs can be particularly helpful, especially now we're looking at not being able to physically come to campus to have that learning. I think Coursera actually, our data science team have put together a course matching algorithm or tool, which is helping us ingest the course descriptions and course titles from different modules that universities are or normally are delivering face to face, and it's helping us match MOOCs to those learning outcomes. So essentially what the MOOC would be doing would be reinforcing the outcomes that you would normally be teaching. So we're not kind of in that sense disrupting the curriculum, more we're kind of supporting that. So when the students are away, there's some scaffolding to the learning that they're doing and some guidance, and kind of it's set up for them to kind of progress and check their knowledge while they're actually not able to talk to a professor because they're learning it from home. And I think what can happen in this sort of a flipped learning model, so the time that they're away, they can learn this information, they can progress through this course, and then when they come back and actually have that time, which I guess is now in an online Zoom call or seminar with their professors, the professor can bring their knowledge, their expertise, their examples to what perhaps might be a richer discussion, because the students will have done some learning in a scaffolded way that's been supported while they were away from the classroom or the teacher, into that kind of where the professor can bring the best of themselves and their knowledge and actually have a maybe more productive discussion. So I think that's one way that that it can be nicely blended and doesn't need to replace teachers. I think that's often a fear, isn't it? Like, oh, this is replacing. So I don't think it will ever replace what a professor can bring in terms of their experience and wealth of knowledge and examples, but can be used as a complementary thing in a supported and scaffolded way.
Maybe I can add to that. It is one aspect was mentioned by Steffen before already. It's a lot about also trust and quality and curation. I think that is one of the topics that we really want to work on also with many university partners in Germany, is how do you ensure the trust in the content that comes from another person, another institution, another platform. But I believe there needs to be a shift in the mindset. And I mean, it's all about this general discussion. Is even a university teacher more a facilitator as an expert who helps students navigate through a certain academic field? That's the first aspect. The second aspect is I actually often wonder why universities teachers like fearing a situation where they have a higher level discussion with their students, because that's exactly what Kerry said already. Our belief is that they are better prepared by getting different digital perspectives through online learning opportunities. And then the actual discourse, the academic discourse, has a better foundation. And I personally believe that there should be no replacement of the seminar, of the interaction in smaller groups where the professor and the student, they discuss, if it's social sciences, they work on certain mathematical problems. If it's mathematics, they code something, but it's for me, it's a lot about the foundations that lead towards the real academic level. And I really believe that there's a great need for shift in the mindsets, that there are new pathways on the academic level that actually is real fun for university teachers, because it's challenging them in their research expertise. And I hope that there will really be a shift in the next years. The last aspect is that you need communities. And we are doing that with different institutions also. Within the higher education institution, you need to create a community of people who are interested in using innovative formats. And you will never, like we always say, you have 20% to do it already. You have 60% who are somehow insecure, unsure, and you have 20% who will never do it. So follow the 80-20 principle, create opportunities for those 60% who are unsure and support them within your educational institution. So this is, I'm asking you to like support your teachers, because only if they feel more secure in opening up, they will actually do it. And I think that's a lot about institutional culture.
Absolutely. If I can directly answer to that, is that okay, Steffen?
Sure.
just from the experience that we have at the moment, because both things are absolutely right. This experience that we want our seminars back, we want the discussions back, because they are obviously not happening at the moment, and discussions in a forum like this is much more difficult when you have 50 students than when you're in a room. So this is a good chance now to make use of both sides, exactly like you say, and also to give supports, because I have never experienced so much debate on teaching as I experience now. This is great for me because I'm the vice president for teaching and learning. So this is really what we want, and this is an opportunity that we have. So absolutely right. And I think if you take that challenge a bit further and also involve the students, then you have another opportunity. But maybe I keep on with that later and give back to Steffen.
Yeah, maybe just one aspect I was thinking about, the one shift that I'm kind of noticing, and maybe a little bit in the MOOC platform providers, because typically they were focusing on the student. So they were providing good learning content for students to self-learn, to do self-paced learning. And what we noticed also when we were working at Chiron as an educational provider that wanted to use those MOOCs, it was really difficult to get in between the student and the platform, kind of, to see what our students were doing. So now what Kerry was saying with the Coursera for Campus platform, or there's also a Udemy for Government platform, where you actually can create your own learning communities within these platforms. You see what your students are learning, and you can also maybe add your own learning content in a restricted way. So I think this is just a major shift in these platforms, which might be a great opportunity if that moves forward, of course, and to actually focus more on the teachers maybe and their needs. So what do they need to actually be able to integrate the content into their classes? So I think, I think the shift is happening right now. And I think that's really interesting what's going to come up there in the future. Maybe to one more question towards a little bit different side, was I sometimes think as well, what I notice, and maybe that's a very particular thing to AI, or to these new skills maybe that are cross-curricular and are developing. But in general, I think it applies to every subject. So in a classical university, you are basically restricted. That sounds a little bit tough, but you are restricted to what your teacher or your professor is teaching you. You don't have a lot of selection in, I would like to study something a little bit beyond or a little bit aside what's offered at my university. So example, when we offer these courses, there's a lot of doctoral students, a lot of master students that are writing theses, and they don't have the opportunity, for example, to learn machine learning. So they use those courses to actually go a little bit beyond what the universities offers and select from things the local university doesn't offer. Luckily at Kiel here, we actually have a huge university that basically provides a lot of things. But there's a lot of smaller universities as well, or thinking about also poorer countries, of course. I mean, one of the things I think why we don't have the issue in Germany is because the level of education is, and the quality of education in higher education institutions is really high in comparison to other countries where it's very heterogeneous, depending on the money you pay and whatever. But I think in terms of democratizing the education and allowing students also in Germany maybe to select a little bit more, at least to a certain percentage, what they want to study, and maybe go beyond what the current university is offering right now. Do you think, I mean, this is really provocative, I guess, for a German professor, but do you think there's options to open programs towards something like that?
I wouldn't say that this is provocative. We're actually doing this in Schleswig-Holstein at the moment because we're working on a platform, which does not mean that we are not joining into your platform, Florian. We can talk about that later. But no, we are thinking, or we have started a program called Future Skills also. And the idea, which I really like, is related to when one of you saying we want communities of practice or communities of teachers or learners, because the idea here is not just to buy something that is existing, but to also provide something. So the platform should be both ways. Yeah, every university, may it be a small university or a large university, can provide something because we have our special expertise, but we can also take something that others have and that we do not have. So also the students across the whole state of Schleswig-Holstein can cooperate in a way because they can work like you do in Open Campus. This is what I really like in Open Campus, that students meet from different universities. This is an idea which could actually easily integrate existing courses as well from Coursera and others, or your AI platform. So that could be a combination of what we do in Schleswig-Holstein and what others do. I think the trend is really moving towards this more open idea because also students want this opportunity. Mm-hmm. What I also have to say, it's not 100% positive because we still have some subjects, some faculty that are very hesitant because they have a very strong, strict curriculum. Like my own subject is chemistry. In chemistry, we have a very strict curriculum across the world or around the world. And it's really difficult to integrate some more open areas, but we're working on that. In other subjects, there's much more openness already. That again brought me to another question because I realized I would stop at Kerry when you presented your the content areas and how much or which content areas are more taken and less taken. I realized that especially the social sciences and the humanities were more on the lower list. Where I think, but this is really an opportunity also to integrate maybe these content areas more, not just the technical sciences, the natural sciences. Then you have all the aspects of AI and online learning when you also get these content areas on board, which might not be there yet. That could be an opportunity for Kiel to join into your platform, Florian. But I stop here. So no, I think Steffen, you're right. The chance is absolutely is now to create these platforms, and we're trying to do that in Schleswig-Holstein.
Yeah, great. I'm just looking, Tim. What about the time? We are 9, and
I can also add while you're looking to what.
And he's actually saying he has some questions from the chat. So maybe Tim wants to add those ones.
Yeah, I'm in. I'm back in. Can you see me?
Yes.
Super. Yeah, so there was a couple of questions that came in on chat, and the easiest way I think is for me to just jump in the conversation here and share them. So the first question is super nice discussion, by the way. This is really good. It's really interesting stuff. So thank you very much, all of you. It's really makes for great watching. So this one is from Alex, who says, it's amazing that so many great online courses are going to come. How could we make sure that the privileged students who have technical access and access to a quiet and calm learning environment do not leave behind the underprivileged ones who are in more chaotic and perhaps less technically equipped areas, as we've already seen a discussion around that with schools for younger students due to this during the COVID-19 crisis. Any thoughts on that one?
I think it's a really good question. I've been working a lot with universities across Africa, and so we obviously come up against that question a lot because often African students, they won't have access to computers. But what we find is that many of the students on Coursera are actually accessing it through mobile phone. So they don't have a computer, they're using a mobile phone. And that, in fact, over 50% of learners are accessing the content in that way. The other problem I think that we face, particularly in some regions, is with internet connection and obviously the cost of data. And that's a really big, it's very costly in Africa. So students are only able to kind of use their phones when they have access to an internet connection because the data is expensive. So we're the way we are trying to support with that, we have an app on, Coursera has an app, and we've made it so that students are able to download their courses and use them offline when they're not able to connect to the internet, and then they can sync that back up when they're within a hotspot or on campus or something like that. So that's kind of one small step that we're finding makes a difference. I mean, obviously you need to have a phone, but it's quite feasible. You could follow a course on your phone. So that's kind of one way that we're working to try and combat that.
I would like to add to that also. I think first of all, like also being mobile friendly for sure is really important. We experienced that a lot when we worked with refugees at Kerry and Open Higher Education before, many of them using the opportunities they had from Coursera, being able to download it. Looking at higher education institutions and the current discussions going on in Germany and Europe, I think we do not have that many that remote areas. Although in Germany we do have an issue with fast internet connection. But it is important to emphasize the importance of the educational institution as well. I mean, the university can also provide an environment, or the school can provide an environment where students can learn digital content. And that is important. That also needs funding to have proper computers in-house. So a student who can't do that at home can go to the institution and hopefully can do that again very soon after the COVID-19 pandemic is over. But I believe that also higher education institutions are digital hubs to a certain extent and can play a great role. Imagine students sitting there on their computers studying for themselves and then going into the group and discussing what they have just studied. I believe that there are great opportunities for higher education institutions as blended learning facilitators. We heard that from Kerry before, and they should have a role in providing the infrastructure that is needed by those who are not privileged.
That, if I may add something, that sounds very familiar, because our students at the moment say what they need is a quiet place. It's not just the internet, it's not just the smartphone or whatever, but they live in a house where they don't have a quiet place to learn, to study, which is of course now a very special situation. But that raised the question, where can we just provide rooms where they can sit, where they can meet, where they can work? And this will also change maybe universities in the future, that it's not just a lecture room where you go in, learn and go out, but where you have a room just to sit down, just to do something. So more open spaces, more learning spaces is obviously also a way to go forward, I hope.
And this kind of relates to Florian's comment earlier on how is the role of the professor changing, like to become more of a facilitator of learning. There was another comment that came in because there was a speaker here the other day who was saying, I mean, maybe this is a little controversial, a little bit too pushy, but saying that basically all teaching at universities is out of date. And maybe that's not so true in chemistry as it is in some other subjects. There's this idea of trusting content that you mentioned, Florian, as well. And so, I mean, is there a question even in there? I'm not sure.
I think there is a question in there, and that's very important for me. I was a little struck by the quote that we had heard before about the disruption of education through COVID-19. And it probably is an educational disruption. But I remember the times when we had the so-called refugee crisis and everyone talked about educational disruption, innovation going to disrupt higher education. The MOOCs for a long time have all been connected about disrupting higher education. I believe it's a lot also about the appreciation of what is there already. So I believe, yes, there has to be a great shift in how teaching is perceived, in what instructional design actually means, in what innovative learning spaces are. But I believe this is about collaboration and not about the one approach replacing the other approach.
Yeah, someone was talking, I don't know where I got this from, but I was talking about the idea of innovation, and maybe sometimes you don't need to innovate because it's already there. You just need to improve. And so, there are great things already existing now.
I think there's a misunderstanding now. If I put my other hat on, I'm also a science education researcher. And I think that the misunderstanding of some teachers or also students is that they think they teach content, but what they actually do teach is a role model, and it's a way of thinking. It's an approach to a problem, approach to solve a problem. And this is what actually why I would never replace the teaching. It's not just learning, accompanying learning. It's also teaching. It's showing something. It's modeling something. It's showing how to think, and that should not go away. It could also be improved or also included into the MOOCs, of course. But this is, I think, the real idea of a good teacher. He's a model for something.
Yeah, and I often remember, for example, in Germany, when you were teaching higher secondary education or secondary education, the teachers traditionally, they didn't even have to take classes in pedagogic in university. They were often just teach chemistry, let's say, and mathematics, even having a PhD in chemistry, so basic or something like that. So, but what they were able, so they were actually not pedagogic education, or they don't have any educational education or education to teach. But what they had passion for the content, because when you actually studied chemistry as a main subject, then you were passionate about what you were teaching about. So they were actually able to put their interest in their subject into their students, and that's something really important, I think, as well. And I think what we sometimes are able to do with the experts we are getting from the companies is that they work on these fields. They are professionals in these fields, and they provide that motivation. And they have this motivation, that passion, like you have for education, Florian, or for other issues. And so that's actually making people think or motivating others. And I think that's really important. This local context, and that you can't get by a video. That's for sure.
Yeah. There was another question about niches, actually, because I guess this kind of relates to it somehow. This idea of like niche courses and really specialist. And it says, do you think the accessibility to niche courses will increase with the rising popularity of online courses, or decrease? I guess maybe it's a no-brainer.
Well, I don't know if nobody wants to say. I guess what I maybe just relating to the content, Ilka, what you were saying. I think one of the reasons why data science, or maybe some courses are at the higher end or lower end, is the accessibility. So if you are interested in data science, where can you go to get that course? So basically, you have to go online. If you are interested in social sciences, you're probably studying social sciences already, or I don't know how many. Like, I think a lot of the subjects are taught. They are interested in the subjects, so they study that. But maybe what is different is that in a lot of these areas, like even geography, social sciences, whatever, they basically need data science as well, but they don't get access to that education. So maybe that's also a reason why they are high, because it actually shows a lack what the local institutions cannot provide. But that's, and the niches, to come back to that, maybe obviously you can get access to courses you wouldn't get, like that are very niche, if that's a word, online.
I also think, Steffen, that the drive, for the courses like data science and AI and things like that, they're driven by actual needs of people who are maybe in jobs and need to learn right now something related to AI. Even if you're a leader of a company, you're going to need some basic knowledge of AI. And I think the demand for you to be able to progress your company or progress in your job, that there's things that we all are just needing to learn because they're new, and it's not common that people are educated in AI, and it's something that we're all starting to hear more about, and it's starting to impact things, and we suddenly find ourselves with this need to educate ourselves, and that's driving the demand, so to speak. Whereas maybe with some of the social sciences or some of the art subjects, it's more of a perhaps hobbyists that are, you want to go and learn about Rome, or it's not particularly maybe a a demand in your job for you to excel at work or something like that. So maybe that is another reason why we're seeing such high demand for those subject areas.
Yeah.
I think they have a lot to say. So maybe they also need to convince people more than that everybody should learn something about these. I mean, social science is a good example. How statistics, what is COVID? It's all about statistics. People should know something about statistics. Everybody, for example.
There's a great course on Coursera on statistics. Several, but one that I know.
Okay.
So, but like I had one more, if I can, if I may, Steffen, if I throw one more in, which I think takes things in a slightly different direction, but it's quite interesting. So this, I think, is coming back to Kerry, what you were talking about, like the changing the nature of qualifications, I think, or education. So things become a bit more modular. So rather than one big block, but you sort of acquire smaller modules of learning. So the question is there a challenge around how employers understand and value new modular study or qualifications? So whereas it was quite easy before, I suppose, to say, okay, well, someone has a degree in chemistry, therefore they know this. How does that work in a kind of more modular learning world?
I think it's a really good question. You know, it's difficult, I guess, as an employer to navigate all of the different qualifications that you might come across. I mean, it was very clear before people had university degrees, they had masters, they had PhDs, and there were professional certificates for things that were recognized and accredited by different bodies. I think now we're seeing lots of different things are popping up, and it's difficult, I think, to know what is good quality, what that qualification actually means. And so I think there are some movements and drive to look at how we can work together. And I think, you know, universities are looking at how they can work together to make those bite-sized chunks something that is a common denominator that we all would work towards, so that then employers and students that aren't in education anymore can kind of understand what does a micro masters or a nano degree, what does that actually mean? And maybe that means 10 credit points in the UK system, or 5 ECTS credit points in the European system. And I think what we need to see is a common framework that we then all work to, and it becomes a little more navigable as a kind of person who doesn't work and live and breathe education, but who is an employer and goes, yeah, we recognize this as a chunk of learning that has value.
As I have recently worked on the topic of quality of credentials, I would like to add to that as well. I believe one really interesting aspect of the new developments is when you talk about quality assurance in terms of micro-credentials, digital credentials, you need to look at the technical side and at the traditional content side, which is a really interesting aspect because, of course, there is, through this new modularity, through the possibility to have stackable qualifications, there's a great opportunity to have digital ways of increasing the transparency of your learning pathway. That's one aspect. And the other aspect is that I do, as an education scientist, believe in the quality in the qualification frameworks that we have available. And they just need to be used in a new way. We do have a European qualification framework. We do have a German qualification framework, and higher education is based on that, and all the other education at the end also. But we do have now a way in order to describe competencies, skills and competencies in a way that they add and that they're better included into such frameworks. At the end, if I look at, for example, currently I'm looking to hire a program manager in the field of international higher education. Actually, I get 50 applications with all very similar higher education degrees. I am impressed if they add 2 Coursera certificates, or if they, it is, from an employer's perspective, I think it is very much also about those aspects that differ from the applications that you have and this whole bunch of applications. What is going to be interesting is if everyone is doing a massive open online course, what is then going to be the next thing that you have to do in order to be different to the others who apply.
Yeah, and how does that get through like this? Sorry, I'm jumping in there. Ilka, did you want to add anything to that one before I push that forward? Or
I think I completely agree with what Florian said. I think in the future, students who have something extra, something additional, will have better opportunities to get something. For a university, this is much more complicated because we need to what's the English word for that? Accredit something, our courses through our ministry and to the organizations, and then to say, okay, but they can sort of buy some courses in, is a difficult thing in Germany. I'm not saying it's not possible. I would actually quite like that, to have it in a more open system. But at the moment, this would be very challenging to have a more flexible thing, because we have to argue what we put into our course. And when we say we leave something open, that students can take anything, and we can't sort of have a quality system, even though it's there, it will be difficult. So I think this is not a good argument, not at all. We should get rid of that. But this is the situation at the moment.
I would like to add to that just briefly, because I believe at a certain point, higher education institutions and higher education policymakers will have no other chance than rearranging how accreditation systems, how the Bologna system in Europe is constructed, because otherwise it will be fully, the private market who is taking over in many of the fields. There is good reasons, and there is for it to take over some parts, and there's good reasons for public and higher education to be a strong player in lifelong learning. So I believe in the next, not now, but in the next 10 years, there will be a major shift within those systems that define how we see education policy.
And again, I think we could actually join in. We do not just have to buy something. We can produce something together in teams like this. And when we're discussing that in our association of subject matter education, we say if every one of us produces one course, then everyone else in Germany can use it. It's in German, obviously. And then it's very easy to accreditate it again, because we have all produced it. So I think there are ways, absolutely. And it would be great if we could get a shift in that system too, and not just in the content and the teaching.
Yeah, and I was going to say one more thing about this kind of hiring thing from an employer's perspective, but it's also like there are so many. It's not just about the hiring people; it's about the hiring software, because like many big companies are now using these screening engines, which look at all of the CVs and process those, and so maybe it's more important that the learners are able to describe these courses in a certain way that actually the algorithms can see through them and understand whether the fitness for purpose. So, yeah. Steffen, back to you.
I would hope we can have that in presence next year, maybe at the Waterkant, and actually see and shake hands, if that is going to be possible one day again. And
I can't wait.
It would be great to have you there. And the last thing, maybe I can also advertise for next week, where we have a final education session, which is actually on digitalization and social justice. So one of the aspects, so we have a principal from Ulrike Jansen from the elementary school in Neumünster, which, we call it Brennpunktschule in Germany. And what she was experiencing, and they were trying to develop their own online content actually, but obviously they had huge issues with social injustice and the consequences. So that's someone, if you're interested in that, everyone's welcome to join there. And yeah, I think that's from us.